Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Dr. Azzam. Sir, now we are focusing on the intra-African trade in general, but also focusing on the Egyptian economic and trade relations with the rest of the African states. Now, what do we have to offer to the rest of the African countries? We're in Africa, so loads of countries, they do have the agriculture, they do have the minerals, the natural resources, the cattle, the meat, everything. But it seems that Egypt maybe has an upper hand in terms of energy, electricity, natural gas, maybe the expertise, developmental expertise from going through the Decent Life Initiative. And we were building a dam in Tanzania. So what can we offer to the rest of the African countries, and what do we want in return? I mean, when we talk about countries such as Kenya, Nigeria, Chad, and a host of other African countries, what do we want from them, and what can we offer to these countries?
Actually, if we would like to answer this question, we need to have the bigger picture in mind. And of course, identifying our strengths. You mentioned some of our strengths. We have the expertise. We have very qualified engineers in different domains. We've been in the manufacturing sector for decades now. Almost 80 years ago, we started our manufacturing or industrial sector here in Egypt. So you have the expertise, you have the labor, you have many competitive labor. And of course, you need to complement each other. We don't need to compete, actually one of the great things that can offer to the African continent is the location. The logistics,
yes.
When it comes to logistics, actually, logistics is a booming economic sector that is all over the world, and Egypt is a key player in the logistics or the global logistic economic sector. That's why you need to think by having bilateral or trilateral or multilateral cooperation agreements to build a comprehensive approach for building industrial African continent. This is very important. You cannot do everything alone. You cannot also just repeat things. So we need to stop such redundancy and duplication. So we need to have the map of Africa and saying that this is our area of strength, this is our area of expertise, and this is the other area of expertise and strengths in different countries or nations across the country, the continent, sorry. And we need to have a master plan for developing Africa. By integrating our efforts together, taking advantage of every single strength that we have as a nation and every single strength that any nation in the African continent has. This is the only way to become one economic unit, not competing but cooperating, integrating their efforts all together, becoming one front as economic country, an economic continent, like what happened actually in the European Union. In the European Union, this started by having a free trade agreement between the European nations, and it took almost 60 years to develop, or almost 40 years to develop, to become one economic and political unit. So things needs to have a start, and we've seen this in 2018 in Cairo, and we've seen this in 2023 in Cairo. There is a real political will to do something different, to do something that is really for the benefit of the African nations and the people of Africa. And the only way is, again, is the integration, is the knowledge transfer, is not repeating things, is taking advantage of our strengths and working with our disadvantages and our weaknesses and convert it into strengths and seeing the opportunities, because the opportunities is huge, and also seeing the threats that we need to mitigate. So it's very actually a dynamic approach that you need to build and connect the blocks all together to have a real competitive industrial continent, and to be Africa as one unit, to become really a world player when it comes to the trade all over the world.
Dr. Azzam, because we're running out of time, but I need to ask you, you're a technological expert, and whenever we talk about inter-African trade, everybody thinks about vegetables and clothes and cotton and mineral resources and all products in this domain and this sort of sense of the word. But let's talk about the technological cooperation. How can we increase and develop technological cooperation, technological trade, digital trade, the artificial intelligence? How can we increase the economic cooperation between the African states in this domain, the technological and digital cooperation?
This is very important, actually, because, again, you need to innovate for a purpose. And the purpose of having Africa as one economic unit, that you open new vista of innovation, actually.
Yes.
And I've seen so many cases when it comes to entrepreneurs all over Africa. I've seen great minds in Tanzania, I've seen great minds in Kenya, and Nigeria, and South Africa, and Namibia. They are really great minds, and we need to connect such great minds all together here in Egypt as well. And to actually organize such great minds around a purpose, saying that I need to have self-thinking supply chain system, and I need to work on the technology in this domain, for example, this one example. And I need to focus my efforts on actually channeling my investment in one big thing that I can build, I can own. Then I'm going to utilize what I have developed in-house for the purpose of having competitive economic area, or having a competitive economic zones within Africa, and helping Africa to become one of the world leaders when it comes to technology, and of course when it comes to the global trade ecosystem. And of course part of it is having knowledge transfer, investing again in R&D, open channels for great minds, the youth, to meet and connect and work on something on ground.
Yes.
Not just something in vacuum, to build something that could benefit the whole vision of Africa 2063.
Yes, and definitely with a lot of turbulences taking place within the European continent or the Asian continent as well, we really need to work and depend on intra-African trade, intra-African cooperation, and definitely hosting such a conference with the participation of 75 countries globally, 1,600 exhibitors, entrepreneurs, financiers, and such definitely is a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my distinguished guest, Dr. Mohamed Azzam, the board member of the Association, International Association of Management of Technology, and also the member of the Global Digital Commission at the International Chambers of Commerce. Dr. Azzam, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Pleasure is ours, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Night International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.